What's up, gamers? I hope you're having a wonderful day today. So, as I predicted, the salt around Doom the Dark Ages continues to keep pouring out endlessly, which just doubles the entertainment value I get from this game, because on one hand, the game itself is really fun, and then on the other hand, I also get to laugh at the really bad takes surrounding it, which in this case is coming from none other than the Act Man. The title of the video is Why Doom the Dark Ages is So Disappointing. Now, thinking that Doom the Dark Ages was disappointing isn't necessarily a bad take in and of itself, but there's a problem here when there are a lot of disingenuous arguments and even some cases of flat-out misinformation within the video. Also, I'm just gonna go ahead skip past the intro and the sponsor section so we can just get right into the meat of this video.
The worst part about Dark Ages, and this is going to cause a lot of chaos when I say this, alright? They got rid of glory kills.
And right out the gate, we're starting off with some misinformation, because glory kills are in Doom the Dark Ages. Well, okay, they're not called glory kills, they're called glory strikes, but riddle me this. In Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, you'd shoot a demon until it enters its daze state, you walk up to it, hit your melee key, Doom guy kills it, it drops health. In Doom the Dark Ages, you shoot a demon until it enters its daze state, you walk up to it, hit your melee key, Doom guy kills the demon drops health and ammo. What, pray tell, is the fucking difference? I mean, I guess you can't do it on fodder demons anymore, but at the same time, they'll die in a single melee strike to any of your melee weapons anyway.
I'll say it again. They got rid of glory kills. And some of you might be saying, oh no, Act Man, you're just exaggerating, you're being hyperbolic. Okay, you're right.
Well, glad we could clear that up. Surely there's nothing more to say on it, right?
So we agree they got rid of them by about like 95%.
No, we don't agree on it, because you're just flat out wrong. Now, they did tweak the system in order to work better with Doom the Dark Ages combat loop, but the glory kill mechanic does still exist in the game.
If you get 100% of a pizza, and then the next pizza you order, you only get 5% of the pizza, well, that's less pizza. Oh, see, it's weird, man. Sometimes you can get the kills off and other times you can't. I don't get you.
I don't get you.
Saying they got rid of glory kills is like saying Master Chief took his helmet off. Like,
You what?
like my brain just...
Actually, no, those two things are completely different, because Master Chief did take his helmet off at the end of Halo 4, whereas Doom the Dark Ages did not get rid of glory kills.
You could tell they got rid of glory kills because if they did, I would be showing you footage of Doom Guy using the flail to wrap it around a Mancubus's neck before popping that sucker off. I would be showing off some of the coolest things in the world.
He says, as he shows off a glory kill in Doom the Dark Ages of Doom Guy sawing a fucking cyber demon in half. Like, how do you so effectively betray the entire point you're trying to make with your own editing? I remember Second Wind did the same shit.
It boggles the mind because some of the glory kills you can pull off in very specific circumstances are pretty sweet. Glory kills have been replaced by executions.
They're more like executions, you know, you're able to just move from one guy to the next.
But executions became such a rare occurrence during my playthrough that I started chat clipping it every time.
Then that's your own damn fault, because throughout the course of the game, you'll get many demons to enter their daze state. It's on you to either shield bash them or get close enough to melee them to trigger the execution. Especially if you're already getting up close and personal with weapons like the shotguns or the accelerator. Hate to break it to you, Act Man, but that one's kind of on you, buddy.
Oh yeah, there we go. I want more of that. Give me more of that. Glory kills weren't in the original games, but they were a way of modernizing Doom back in 2016. They added a cinematic feel that you never saw in any other FPS. Yes, at times they could feel like they slowed down the combat, but you could mostly engage with glory kills as much or as little as you wanted to.
Glory kills were absolutely an essential mechanic in 2016 and Eternal, because they were the primary means by which you would recover your health. But in addition to that, it seems like a lot of Act Man's problems with the new glory kill system is the lack of the cinematic animations that they had in 2016 and Eternal, which are instead replaced with a melee hit that you would normally do during gameplay, with a very brief cinematic slowdown. So why does Doom Doom the Dark Ages do this for most of its glory kills? Well, it's because in any given encounter, you're facing a lot more demons in Doom the Dark Ages than you ever did in Eternal in 2016. And if every glory kill was accompanied by that mini cutscene like it was in 2016 in Eternal, you would literally get swarmed, while also interfering with the melee system this game has. Like, you might space out different melee strikes between multiple demons, but locking the player into a short mini cutscene like 2016 and Eternal did with their glory kills would interfere with that. That's why they instead went with a 300 style slowdown effect, because you can still maintain control over Doomguy while it happens.
We've seen companies cut these same corners before, and it always goes over poorly. When Halo Infinite got rid of assassinations, everybody disliked that.
Okay, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm glad they removed assassinations from Halo because they provided no benefit over a regular backsmack, which would kill instantly anyway. All it did was just leave you vulnerable, which is really annoying whenever I would accidentally do one on Legendary and I'd get killed because of it.
And for Doom, it should be no different. It is stupid how it doesn't matter the size or shape of a demon when you execute them all the same. It breaks my immersion constantly when I'm annihilating some 20-foot demon and it ends with like just a basic fucking kick. Take that, 5-ton behemoth.
I don't know, dude. I think it sells the concept of the Doomslayer perfectly when he kicks like a 20-foot tall cyber demon and then explodes into like a million pieces, but you know, you do you, I guess.
There was so much creativity in these killing animations. It wasn't just like mindless action, but to reinforce the idea that this is why Doomguy is the only thing they fear. When you see how he kills the demons, you know why they fear him, thus selling you on this incredible power fantasy of taking the fight to hell and not being scared.
Because you are the Doomslayer, the strongest, fastest demon killer in existence, and nothing can stand in your way.
But for whatever reason, it seems id Software didn't understand that or consider that when developing Dark Ages.
Yeah, because one-shotting a Mancubus with a single strike from the Dread Mace, or fucking kicking a Cyber Demon and watching him explode into a million pieces is totally not a fucking power fantasy. Like, at this point, it's like he's just looking for a reason to bitch.
If you're gonna replace something that's so awesome and integral about the last two games, you gotta give us something of equal or greater value. In some ways, Dark Ages feels like it has gotten lazy.
You mean like how you've gotten lazy with your content? As I've already explained, this is a result of id Software looking at the mechanics of the Doom games and seeing what fits with the new gameplay style they're going for and what doesn't. If anything, that is the complete opposite of being lazy.
Like these death animations. If you have a life sigil, then instead of like falling over and dying or exploding and your helmet comes off.
It's so weird to just have a menu pop up to be like, you have died.
Like you're there fucking adrenaline pumping and then just, you have died.
Yeah, it's so dumb that you have died. Show me dying.
That's because you have a life sigil, dumbass. Obviously, they're not going to show you a death animation if you choose to revive with a life sigil. This was the same shit in Doom Eternal. The only difference is that there, you were forced into using a 1-up token. But now the game gives you the option on if you want to use the life sigil or just restart from the checkpoint and save it for later, which is great if you end up dying to something really stupid. Now, I will say that being interrupted by the menu pop-up is a little bit weird, but considering that the only way I can think of to fix this is by removing this great quality of life feature, it's not an unjustified addition. But if you die and you don't have a life sigil, or you choose not to revive with it, then you will see a death animation, so where's the problem?
What is the problem?
This is a new kind of Doom. A simpler Doom. How simple is it? Well, they got rid of the double jump and the dash, and the grapple hook. And as a result, the puzzles, the exploration is just an objective downgrade.
You say that like any of those things are necessary to have good puzzle solving. Sure, Doom the Dark Ages did remove a lot of those mechanics, but it also added plenty of other mechanics to take their place. Things like the shield bash, the shield tossing to activate mechanisms, breaking the superheated metal, which can be used to open pathways or do other miscellaneous shit, and surely the Act-Man's gonna bring that up and explain why he thinks the secret hunting is worse despite all that, right? Right? Yeah, let's see what the Act-Man has to say about this.
Yeah, a lot of the secret areas do not feel like secret areas. They feel like You looked down. Good job.
Okay, admittedly, there are plenty of secrets that are just looking down and dropping off a ledge, and that's the secret. And yeah, they're really easy to find if you look at your auto map, but I wouldn't even say that's close to the majority of the game's secrets, and on top of that, 2016 and Eternal also had some really easy shit to find as well. So I would hardly say this is a problem specific to Doom the Dark Ages.
What they got rid of, they replaced with something worse. Instead of the double jump, now we have swimming? I never ever imagined Doom Guy swimming, unless he was heading to Rapture to kill everyone there. Jack versus Doom Guy? Who's coming out on top? Taking all bets. I think I can remember one instance when I was like swimming and there was like fire or something to avoid. It's filler. It's filler.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all the Ackman has to say about the game's secret hunting in this game. Well, okay, that's actually not entirely true. He does go back and talk more about it, but way later in the video for some reason. Like, I have no idea why the Ackman brings it up, just says very little on it, leaves it for like a solid 20 minutes, and then comes back to it later. So I'm gonna do something that I don't usually do in my responses. I'm gonna jump ahead in this video so we can stay on topic of puzzle solving and dissect all the issues with what he's saying, and then I'll come back and talk about the sections that were in between. But to address what he said about the swimming, I mean, I can kind of agree that the swimming sections are filler, but the issue I have is that at this point in the video, he's framing it like swimming was the big replacement to all of Doom Eternal's mechanics used for secret hunting, when that's just not really the case because, for one, swimming was also in Doom Eternal, and second of all, swimming makes up like less than 5% of the game's total secrets, and about 90% of the swimming sections that do occur in the game are in the 3 levels that take place in the Cosmic Realm.
And the secrets are hardly secrets.
Come on, this is a secret. Come on. All I did was go left. That's not a secret.
And here we go with a very disingenuous way of framing this example. No, the secret here is not just turning left like the Actman says. No, the actual secret is just getting up onto this ledge, which looks fairly trivial from the way Actman's footage frames it, but in reality, you can't actually get up here normally. What you have to do is complete an optional encounter, break a superheated piece of metal with your shield to activate a jump pad that you can use to fling yourself onto the platform. That's the secret part of this secret. It's just that id Software placed the line def for the secret message being triggered next to the ruby because that's the entire point of even coming up here in the first place. Now, is this secret the hardest thing in the world to find? Not really, but then again, that applies to most of the secrets in the modern Doom reboot trilogy.
A lot of levels are just like flat, wide open. Again, because they got rid of the double jump, they can't really add a whole bunch of interesting platforming. Therefore, secrets are less secretive and levels are less interesting.
Again, platforming is not mandatory for secret hunting, and given the type of game this is, it makes sense that there wouldn't really be that much platforming compared to Doom Eternal, but the puzzles in this game do take advantage of some of the other mechanics that were added to Doom the Dark Ages, notably the shield. And while you could look at the auto map and glean the general area in which you need to look to find the secret, you won't know the specific spot in many cases, and you'll have to look around and examine your surroundings in order to find it. In fact, I'll just discuss a few secrets in this game that actually do require a bit of thought. There's one in the Abyssal Forest mission where there's this castle on the side with a locked room. You know that's where the secret is, but how you get into it isn't immediately clear. You have to scale around the castle and look at a spot from the right angle to see a superheated piece of metal that you can break with your shield, which opens the door and lets you get to the secret. On the Carthel Marshes level, there's a secret that requires you to throw a shield into a mechanism socket and leave it there as you run around to get to the open door. If you haven't been paying attention to your surroundings, you might not be sure what the mechanism is immediately doing if you just casually toss your shield in there. And then there's yet another secret on the same level that has an honest-to-God puzzle with a rotating room. And you gotta orient the room and ride across the rotating platforms in order to get into a spot where you can jump into the secret area. Like, I don't know about you, but I find that pretty interesting. Now, despite all this, I do still think it's valid to prefer the secret hunting in Eternal because of the platforming, but just because you prefer simple platforming over simple puzzles does not mean the puzzle solving in Doom the Dark Ages is objectively worse.
You kind of just glide across the ground in a lot of levels, massacring everything in sight. Very little like height advantage or environmental hazards or teleporters, man cannons, or power-ups. In 2016, each arena you fought demons in felt like a playground you had to master. Same with Eternal. Doom Guy would dance around a battlefield like Michael Jackson with his double-barreled shotgun blasting demons straight back to hell. It was awesome. Dark Ages, it feels more like you're a blender. Rarely does the environment itself pose any challenge.
I was actually so unused to environmental hazards, I just walked into the yellow acid.
Levels are much more linear and less labyrinthine.
Damn it, Ackman, you were on a bit of a roll there, talking about how the arenas aren't as dynamic as they were in Doom Eternal in 2016. But saying that the levels in the Dark Ages are more linear than they were in the previous two is just objectively false. I mean, sure, there are a good chunk of linear levels in this game, but there are a lot of more open-ended levels that give you more freedom as to how you go about tackling the level. It is far less linear than the levels in 2016 and Eternal. I mean, I guess you might have had an outlier in the form of the Foundry level from Doom 2016, but that is it. I mean, for fuck's sake, Doom Eternal's level design was literally just combat arenas and linear sections in between them, usually with some platforming, and that was it. Those levels were not labyrinthine in any capacity. In fact, I remember at the time that Doom Eternal released, there was a lot of people bitching about the linearity. Doom the Dark Ages, there is a lot of levels where you can tackle objectives not only in any order, but also in any way you want. You can approach different fights from different angles.
Most puzzles are pretty easy to figure out, with landmarks so colorful and unmistakable it's hard to miss them. But in previous games, often you would have to really take in your surroundings, and sometimes you'd find a secret trapdoor that doesn't have an obvious marker except for the tiny little button prompt. And this would lead you to a secret area that would reward you with an upgrade to your suit.
Oh my god, this comparison's fucking awful. You are comparing main path progression in Doom the Dark Ages to secret hunting in Doom 2016. That example he shows of the shit being obvious in Doom the Dark Ages is shit that you need to progress the main path throughout the level. Doom the Dark Ages is a fast-paced boomer shooter where the whole point is the combat. No shit, they're gonna make the main path easy to find. If you're talking about secret hunting, then why don't you actually showcase secrets in Doom the Dark Ages as your example? Because for most of the secrets, a lot of the shit that you have to do is either not clearly marked, like the shield bash symbols are a darker shade of blue that are harder to spot, or if it is something brighter, like superheated metal, then they tend to place it in the spot that's obscured by the geometry unless you're looking at it from the right angle.
Oh yeah, remember the suit? Why are there no upgrades for it?
The suit progression was replaced with the shield and melee weapon progression, which did not exist in the previous games. And surely you're gonna mention that instead of just saying that they removed the suit upgrades and making it seem like they didn't replace it with anything, right? Right? Yeah, of course he fucking doesn't.
So the vast majority of combat feels like it happens in long, wide, open, flat environments, and the exploration, while simple, fun, and easy, doesn't feel nearly as rewarding as, you know, taking 5 or so minutes to be like, that's how you get into that room. You know?
Like I explained earlier, there were several puzzles in Doom the Dark Ages that took me a few minutes to solve. Now, was this anywhere close to the majority of the puzzles? Definitely not. But that's also something I could say about Doom 2016 and Eternal. And that's really the main issue with the Ackman sections on secret hunting in this game. It's either based on information that's objectively false, Ackman framing his points in a disingenuous way, or something that could be applied to all 3 games in the trilogy, but he's only singling out Doom the Dark Ages.
Doom the Dark Ages seems to de-emphasize exploration and instead fill those quiet moments with more combat. Thus, the combat feels more repetitive because there's less breaks in between.
So the part about Doom the Dark Ages having low-intensity combat in its quiet areas is true, but the part about them de-emphasizing exploration and secret hunting is objectively false. Especially in some of the more open-ended levels, like the Siege mission. There's a lot of optional shit you can find by exploring. In fact, some missions, like Siege Part 1, have challenges that actively encourage you to explore. Also, FYI, this is the part where I'm jumping back to where I skipped earlier.
One of the big changes made is with melee, and the game's first new weapon, the Power Fist. Let's just get some of the bad stuff out of the way. Melee combat is weird in this game. The Power Gauntlet charges regenerate over time or by finding melee ammo.
What?
Melee ammo? Imagine if they did this shit in Halo. Whoa, you can't whack your pistol 3 times in a row. What are you, crazy? You know, Master Chief gets tired too. I don't understand. If you're going to set Doom in a medieval fantasy setting, why would you limit melee combat? Wouldn't that be like a main focus? Stand and fight?
The game limiting the amount of melee charges you have is simply a mechanic to balance out the game. If you could spam your melee weapon without limit, the game would literally be brokenly easy. I mean, shit, the way the Berserk power-up works in this game is that it gives you infinite melee charges, and if you've played this game and remember using it, you know how brokenly overpowered it is. And I also find it ironic that you bring up Halo when it is by far one of the most prominent examples of limiting the usage of melee weapons in order to balance the game, i.e. the energy sword and the gravity hammer, which are melee weapons with limited ammo. Or hell, like Doom Eternal limiting things like the Blood Punch, Chainsaw, and Crucible. Like, I seriously don't understand how this is a foreign concept.
Instead, it's like this weird pseudo-hybrid.
You know, you get this boxing match, you know, almost against the biggest enemies we have. They throw strikes, you parry them, you're charging your melee, you throw your strikes, you get off some shots.
Melee combat in Dark Ages is like a boxing match, but with all the complexity and strategy of, say, Punch-Out on NES. That's not a dig at Punch-Out, that's just how simple and basic the melee combat is, that it could be compared to an NES game.
I mean, you can say that, but that's not really an issue considering that melee combat is just one tool of many in this game. Well, at least when it comes to the on-foot combat. Now, when it comes to the mech sections, yeah, that literally is just fucking Punch-Out. But for the on-foot sections, the gameplay isn't just melee and dodge. The game is shield toss, shoot, block, parry, bash, falter, melee, glory kill. That's Doom the Dark Ages. Like, you can't just look at melee in a vacuum, you have to look at how it interacts with the rest of the combat systems.
Another big change is that you no longer have the insta-kill melee, be it a chainsaw or the Crucible sword, both of which were pretty fucking cool.
Well, you do have the Dread Mace, and its whole shtick is that it does fuck you damage, to the point where it pretty much one-shots everything except super heavies, and even then it'll still usually put them in their glory kill state.
But let's switch gears and jump into some of the other features Dark Ages has, like...
absolutely fucking nothing.
You see, this review is not just about what Dark Ages has, but also what it has lost. There is no multiplayer, snap map, battle mode, horde mode, not even a demon dating simulator.
I don't necessarily think it's wrong to want other content in the game besides the campaign, but you also have to consider that this is the biggest campaign in the reboot trilogy. For context, Doom 2016 and Eternal have 13 levels each, whereas Doom the Dark Ages has 22. Although if we don't count the 3 filler-ass mech levels, that is 19, which is a roughly 50% increase in campaign content. And on top of that, most people did not really give a shit about the multiplayer in Eternal or 2016. Like in Doom 2016, less than 10% of people on Steam have the achievement for reaching level 5 in the multiplayer, and in Doom Eternal, less than 2% have the achievement for playing 25 battle mode matches. You also bring up horde mode, but that wasn't in Doom Eternal when it launched. I think it took them like a year and a half or 2 years after the game launched for them to put that in the game. But again, I don't necessarily think it's wrong to want additional side content.
Doom is one of those rare IPs where most people don't care about storytelling.
Least of all, me. I mean, there are honestly some parts I could respond to in this whole section, but I've never cared about the story in the Doom games, and I'm not about to start now.
In Doom Demons Die Twice, you can parry certain attacks and turn the tables on an aggressive foe. It's a unique spin on the classic formula. Like before, at first, it's fun parrying projectiles, learning the patterns, and adapting to them on the fly. The shield is super fucking cool. Being able to throw it and implant it in a big demon to stun it. The shield bash lets you fly across the battlefield similar to the grapple hook. But over the course of time, it starts to become apparent that a lot of enemies shoot the same projectile.
What? You mean to tell me that Doom the Dark Ages, a game in a series known for having enemies with consistent behaviors and attack patterns, has enemies with consistent behaviors and attack patterns? In other news, the floor is made out of floor.
The problem I have is how prevalent parrying is, when it's such a simple mechanic. Every attack you parry slows the game down, to the point where it got so annoying, I tried looking through the settings if there was a way to disable it. Between the weird knockback and slow-mo effect, the game starts to feel sluggish. like it's compensating for a lack of depth in the melee combat.
Alright, here's the thing. In a vacuum, Ackman's point makes a lot of sense, and I too wish there was an option to reduce or remove the slowdown that happens on parries and melee hits. The problem though is that this is the same person that spent the first 7 minutes of this video bitching about how the game doesn't immediately stop you and lock you into a mini cutscene when performing glory kills like it does in Doom 2016 and Eternal, which slow you down way fucking more than the parries do in this game.
Sometimes it's cool to pull off a parry, but other times it feels like you're just spamming the block button and instinctively parrying every attack that's thrown your way, effectively dumbing down your available strategies.
On the contrary, the parries are there to expand your options and allow you to get up close. In fact, the only enemies I can think of that really force you to parry are the Agadon Hunter and the Enhanced Azrak boss fight. Otherwise, you can stay at a distance and shoot him to death if you want. But just spamming the parry button isn't always the best idea due to the game's anti-spam protection. And on higher difficulties, trying to parry 2 or even sometimes just 1 unparryable attack results in your shield breaking and leaving you very vulnerable. And the parry exists to expand the options that you have to go in aggressively to a horde of enemies when there's a bunch of them all slinging a bunch of projectiles your way.
Let's move on to weapons and demons and level design, because this is what Doom is all about.
Big effing guns.
And not just these, right, fellas? One thing I really love about Eternal in 2016 is how every weapon had like 3 modes of fire, with mods that you could swap out of during combat. Every weapon felt like it had been explicitly tuned to fit a certain situation or scenario, and had certain drawbacks. In Dark Ages, it's like every weapon only has 1 mode of fire, and they just doubled the amount of weapons, so they all feel like they do less. The Ravager and the Punisher are a great example. Why are these 2 separate weapons when the differences are so minor?
The quote-unquote minor difference between the Pulverizer and Ravager completely changes the scenario in which you'd want to use the weapon. The Pulverizer shoots a lot of projectiles over a wide spread, meaning it's most effective for crowd control, but against a single target is not really all that effective, whereas the Ravager has a much tighter spread and fast fire rate, making it good for focus damage against a single target. And when you bring upgrades into the picture, it means that each of the weapons have specific scenarios that you'd want to use them in. For example, the rocket launcher being able to fire empowered rockets after parrying a projectile. So if you're in a combat arena with a lot of enemies that fire parryable projectiles, as well as having a lot of super heavies like cyber demons or something, parry a projectile and fucking nuke the cyber demon. You want to get up close and personal? You can use the super shotgun as a quick burst of damage, or you could also use the Impaler's ability to recharge melee strikes and go for more melee focus. Are there a bunch of enemies with armor? Pull out the chain shot and just wreck it. Now, is there some overlap between weapons? Yes. And are there some weapons whose situations I think are outclassed by other weapons? Also yes. But at the same time, I could also say that about several of the weapon mods in Doom Eternal and 2016. Like the shield on the chain gun was just better than the mobile turret mod. Sticky bombs are just more consistently useful than the full auto mod. And I don't know a single person that would rather use the remote detonate over the triple lock burst.
Since there are no alternate fires, the idea of upgrading weapons is also a lot less interesting, since it merely enhances the primary fire.
But some of those upgrades can also give secondary effects to these weapons that can be very useful. For example, the upgraded combat shotgun can set demons on fire, making them drop armor. The upgraded Ravager will get enemies to drop health, as well as additional Skull Crusher ammo. Meaning you can effectively fire this thing infinitely so long as you're hitting something. The upgraded Impaler can charge your melee ability faster. The Cycler can apply shock to enemies, which makes them take more damage from all sources. The Accelerator has a variant of the Heat Blast mod returning from Eternal in 2016. And the Rocket Launcher has an ability where after parrying for a short time, any rockets that detonate near you will heal you instead of harming you. And when you get the final upgrade, this ability lasts a ridiculously long time, which completely changes how you use the weapon since you can now use it at close range without fear of blowing yourself up. Like, I don't know about you, Actman, but that sounds pretty interesting to me.
And instead of unlocking upgrades via challenges or combat tokens, it's gold now. Often placed just right out in the open, like it takes 0 effort to collect a lot of gold. Feels kind of like Donkey Kong 64, where they just put hundreds of bananas everywhere.
Sure, the game does put quite a bit of gold along the main path, but at the same time, if you really want to get all the upgrades, you're still gonna have to be doing the challenges and looking for secrets to find additional gold. Second of all, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal also put some upgrade currencies along the main path. I mean, shit, Doom Eternal literally would give you over half the weapon tokens through just playing the levels normally. Sure, you would get extra by finding optional encounters and Slayer gates, but you would also get a lot through just playing the game normally. Third, gold is only one of 3 currencies used to upgrade your weapons. And as far as the weapons go, they can only be used to get the low tier upgrades. Mid and high tier upgrades require rubies and wraith stones, which the game only puts 1 ruby along the main path, that being the first one in Sentinel Barracks, which is probably just there to teach you that the mechanic exists, and I don't think there is a single wraith stone placed along the main path, so if you want to get those full weapon upgrades, you're still gonna have to hunt for secrets, which the Actman conveniently never mentions in this video because that would go against this bullshit narrative he's trying to spin.
The weapons feel off. I think it's a combination of the demons being much easier to kill and every weapon being good in almost every scenario.
He says, while he shows himself shooting a cyber demon with the shredder and doing fuck all in terms of damage in the process.
The game starts to feel very arcadey. I mean, don't take my word for it. Immediately after you beat Doom the Dark Ages, go play 2016 and notice how different enemy behavior is. How possessed soldiers, even though they're cannon fodder, they can still put up a decent fight. They take a couple shots to take down.
I mean, they kinda had to do that in Doom 2016, considering that there's a maximum of 12 enemies that can be spawned in at any given time. And while individual enemies in Doom the Dark Ages are less powerful, there's also a hell of a lot more of them. And hey, if you prefer the 2016 style of gameplay, that's perfectly fine, but that doesn't mean the way Doom the Dark Ages does it is objectively flawed. And that's pretty much all I feel like I need to respond to in this video, so I'm gonna go ahead and end things off here. Like, the main thing is that Actman seems to prefer the style of gameplay in Doom Eternal in 2016 over Doom the Dark Ages, which that is well and fine, but based on how disingenuous a lot of his arguments were, I just get the feeling he was looking for any little thing to complain about rather than actually analyzing the objective quality of the game, instead of just saying that it just wasn't for him. But anyways, that's gonna be about it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and tell me what you think about the Actman's review of Doom the Dark Ages. Anyways, that's it. Peace!